Well, hello and welcome back. Glad you can make it. We will be continuing reading Dark Space with chapter one. So, this one's going to be a bit longer. I think it's like 20 or 30 pages of chapter. So, depending on how fast I read it, it'll be a bit longer than that prologue episode. So bear with me. I may chop it up. I may not. We'll see how it goes. Okay, here we go. Chapter 1. Ethan Ortain stood at the Smeary viewport, looking out at space through a greasy sheen of fingerprints. His fingerprints. He placed a hand against the viewport, adding a fresh smear of grease. Here and there, against the blackness of space, was a bright blue or orange glow of real space drives, flickering to life as some ship or another fired its engines to change course, speed up, or slow down. They were easy to pick out against the blackness of dark space. The distant sector of the galaxy where humanity had holed up since the war. Dark space was a cluster of black holes with a small pocket of semi-habitable planets and stations inside. Radiation was a constant threat, and if you weren't in a reasonably shielded station or ship, you'd be burned alive. Some of the planets were far enough away and had strong enough atmospheres that they didn't bake in the radiation, but most were inhospitable rocks. For these reasons, and because there was only one known way in or out of the sector, dark space had once been a place of exile for criminals, but now it was all that was left of the once galaxy-spanning imperium of star systems. Now the ISS was dead in all but name. Only a handful of fleet vessels had survived the war, and they were left guarding the deactivated space gate, which was the only way in or out of dark space. This is what we've come to, Ethan said, turning from the viewport with a sigh. But he wasn't talking about the galactic situation. He wasn't talking about his galactic situation. Renting a room in the cheapest station we can find, hiding from Brondy's collection agents, until we can miraculously come up with the money to pay our debts. Alara offered him a pretty smile from where she was sitting on the bed. And her big, bright violet eyes shone in the wan, flickering light of the room's soul glow panel. She had a long, dark hair and alabaster white skin with full red lips. A man could lose himself staring at her face for too long. It was like staring into a fire. You just knew that if you got too close, you were going to get burned. Her face was to die for, and she had a body to match. But most of the time, Ethan didn't notice either. But most of the time, Ethan didn't notice either. Hiding is still better than dead, she said. Ethan frowned, his eyes skipping around the dismal, boxy room. Paint was peeling off the walls. A rickety, squeaky bed laid. A low-res holo projector was mounted to the opposite wall. The room had a tiny bathroom with a vacuum cleanser. That's more made-up sci-fi talk. So small, you had to step in sideways. Ethan, that must be their version of a tub or something, or like a wash, shower. Ethan turned back to the greasy smear of a viewport. It's only better than dead until someone finds us. Alara Vastra was his co-pilot and longtime partner in crime. She liked to play the optimist, but the truth was, without a miracle, they were both as good as dead. They borrowed 10,000 souls from Big Brainy Brondy to fix their ship after their drives had cut out, and they'd crashed during a routine landing on Antares. They'd skipped the last 3 loan payments in order to avoid having their ship impounded for unpaid docking fees, and now Brondy wanted them dead. They'd lost a few inches of duranium and their shields in their last encounter with his collections agents, and they didn't have the money to repair the shields. Next time they met with Brondy's agents would be their last. Ethan spotted the characteristic ternary blue engine glow of a fighter as it jetted past the station. He idly traced its path with a pair of fingers, and then he realized what he was looking at, and his brow furrowed curiously. That was a Nova fighter. What are you doing out here, little guy? Ethan wondered. Novas were the Dark Space Police, aging fighters from the Valiant. In the last decade of hiding in dark space, the Valiant's original complement of 144 Nova fighters and 144 Nova interceptors had been whittled down by the slow attrition of time, firefights with the delinquent denizens of dark space, and by a limited supply of available replacement parts. Now there were rumored to be less than 80 of each still operational. That left little more than 1 fighter and 1 interceptor to guard every station in dark space except Supreme Overlord Dominic. Except Supreme Overlord Dominic had permanently assigned a whole squadron of Eats around the fuel mines of Atari and the farms on Forlis, not to mention the garrison in dark space at the dark space gate. Translation: there were no police in dark space. People had to fend for themselves and settle their own squabbles. So what was a Nova doing all the way out at Chorlus Orbital? Ethan watched the fighter come around and begin an approach pattern. He's going to dock, Ethan marveled. Alara joined him at the viewport to see what he was talking about. She recognized the fighter immediately. Now there's a rare sight. Must be something serious. Novas don't fly around for fun. Ethan nodded. I'd like to know what's up. He turned away from the viewport, heading for the door. Wait, Alara said. I thought we were supposed to be hiding. He turned from the door to face her. We are. But as long as we're being hunted by an infamous crime lord, I thought we might like to inform the authorities just in case they'd care to do something about it. Alara just stared at him with those big violet eyes of hers. Aren't you going to ask if I would want to come? Do you, he asked. She turned her mesmerizing eyes away from him to walk over to the room's only storage cabinet. Ethan watched her open the cabinet on a squeal of rusty hinges and pull out a hefty plasma pistol. She checked the charge and then promptly strapped it around her waist. Ethan was already wearing his. Closing and locking the cabinet, Alara turned back to him and said, "Let's go." Ethan and Alara walked past a parade of rusty duranium doors with peeling paint and barely legible room numbers on their way through the darkened corridors of Chorlus Station. Half the station's glow panels were dark, while the other half were flickering. Oh, wait. Oh, shoot. Oh, that was a quick chapter. Oh, I'm sorry. That was chapter 1. We'll start chapter 2 in the next video.